Welcome to Vanguard Dynamics, a visual audiobook written by Brian M. Brumbaugh. Read by Gwyneth Paltrow. Sit back and enjoy, and as always, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Chapter 1, The Heist. They said the timeline was stable. They said the protocols were airtight. They said nobody could steal a time machine. They were wrong. It was June 14th, 2029, technically. The truth was messier down in sub-level 6, where space and time had always gotten a little fuzzy. 6 stories beneath a nondescript facility in rural Virginia, inside the temporal vault of Vanguard Dynamics, the most dangerous piece of technology ever built floated quietly in its cradle. Chrono 1, sleek, obsidian, and shaped like a bullet that had been fired through time itself, was suspended in magnetic stasis. It thrummed faintly, not from any engine, but from the barely contained space-time distortions in its core. Security protocols were layered thick around it: retina scans, heat signatures, quantum-locked biometric readers. Redundant systems overlapped to protect the crown jewel of the United States' off-the-books time manipulation initiative. No one could get in. No one was supposed to. And then the lights flickered. For a moment, everything paused. Cameras stuttered. Motion sensors froze. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. Then, with a hiss, the vault door began to open, an inch at first, then another, until the entire slab of steel and ceramic swung wide like the gates of hell. 2 figures slipped through the opening like smoke. The first was tall, crisp, dressed in a black suit that hadn't wrinkled in years: Sebastian Voss. His hair was a precise, silvered wave. His eyes were the color of gunmetal and twice as cold. He didn't rush. He didn't need to. Beside him, chewing gum with the boredom of someone used to breaking every rule written and unwritten, was Nina Thorne. Her boots clicked against the floor as she moved toward Chrono 1. "Security loop gives us 37 seconds, Nina said, glancing at a small device on her wrist. "You've got 35. "Plenty," Voss replied. He approached the control pedestal and placed a smooth silver disc onto the console. It pulsed once, then unfolded into a multi-pronged device that latched onto the interface like a spider settling into its web. A moment later, the lights on the pedestal turned green. The machine recognized him. The hatch to Chrono 1 hissed open. "I missed this thing," Nina said, stepping forward and placing a hand on the edge of the open cockpit. "It missed us," Voss replied, his tone unreadable. Behind them, alarms finally kicked in. 2 full minutes late. Sirens blared. The floor vibrated. The sensors had finally caught up to what was happening. But by the time the first security team reached the vault entrance, there was nothing to see except the echo of collapsed light. Chrono 1 was gone, and with it, history began to unravel. 3 days later, deep beneath a glacier in Alaska, Vanguard's Black Site Command Center was locked in a frenzy of red alert protocol. Colt Ramirez stood in the center of the war room, arms crossed, jaw clenched like a trap ready to spring. The footage looped again on the holoscreen, frame 117, where Voss appeared for a split second, his face caught in the grainy shimmer of disrupted cameras. Ramirez watched the moment play out for the 6th time, maybe the 7th. Beside him, Dr. Riley Chen tapped commands onto a glass tablet, bringing up energy signatures and anomaly projections. She didn't look up. "He's not just stealing history," she said. "He's rewriting it." Colt didn't respond right away. His eyes were still on the screen. "Play it again," he said. A sigh escaped Riley's lips, but she obliged. The moment rolled forward. Nina's smirk, Voss's steady hands, the impossible glow of Chrono 1's activation. Then, gone. 6 confirmed anomalies so far, Riley said. Minor shifts, but increasing in scope. 1 vanished senator. A startup that suddenly doesn't exist. A spike in historical inaccuracies being searched on the net. This is only the beginning. And you're sure it's Voss? It's him. No doubt. Same pattern of disruptions he warned us about when he worked for us. Colt finally turned away from the screen. "Then get Jude and Tess. We've got a chase to run." Outside the war room, a sleek black VTOL warmed its engines on the ice-crusted pad. Inside, Vanguard Dynamics prepared to do the unthinkable. They weren't just chasing ghosts. They were hunting the future. Chapter 2. Vanguard assembles. The door to sublevel B slid open with a whisper of pressurized air. Inside the Vanguard barracks, the atmosphere was as tense as a coiled spring. Jude McConnell sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by open hollow panels, and what appeared to be a half-dismantled coffee machine. Wires snaked out from its guts into a datapad balanced on his knee. "Don't you think you should sleep at some point?" Tess Callahan leaned in the doorway, arms folded, blonde hair pulled into a sharp ponytail that somehow made her look more dangerous, not less. Jude didn't look up. "Sleep is for people who haven't been robbed by time terrorists. You've rebuilt that machine 4 times this week." He grinned. "And each time the coffee's gotten 2% better. By next Friday, I'll have cracked the code of the gods." Tess stepped into the room, boots echoing against the metal floor. She leaned down and poked at one of the open circuits with a knuckle. "If this explodes and kills us all, I want it on record I warned you. If it explodes, the only thing you'll smell is dark roast." A sharp tone interrupted them both. The overhead lights shifted to red. Priority 1 activation. All Vanguard operatives report to command. Immediate deployment. Tess was already moving. Jude sighed and stood, wiping his hands on the back of his jacket, and just when the crema was starting to stabilize. The command briefing room wasn't designed for comfort. Bare walls, cold light, and a single wide holotable that floated above the metal deck like a specter. Colt Ramirez stood at its edge, arms behind his back, staring at the scrolling projections like they owed him an explanation. When Jude and Tess entered, Riley was already there, her screen filled with charts only 3 people on Earth could actually read. Colt didn't wait for greetings. "We've got a situation. Voss and Thorne have taken Chrono 1. Jude's smirk evaporated. "Tell me this is a simulation," he said. Riley shook her head, and the screen behind her changed. A new readout appeared. Temporal displacement events. Confirmed. 6 entries scrolled down the left side, time-stamped and flagged with increasing severity. One of them deleted a congressional aide from 1987, Riley said. Another one ensured a certain Russian oligarch never escaped the KGB. The last one stopped the creation of a small biotech firm in Seattle that, according to predictive models, would have cured 2 forms of leukemia within 10 years. Tess clenched her jaw. "They're targeting pressure points. Stuff no one would notice immediately," Colt nodded. "Death by scalpel, not shotgun. And Chrono 1 gives them surgical precision," Riley added. Colt tapped a control on the table, bringing up a 3D map of Earth overlaid with shimmering red lines like veins pulsing across the continents. "We've located a signature in Florence. 15th century. Another anomaly hit there this morning." "Renaissance Italy?" Jude arched an eyebrow. "Please tell me we're not going in dressed like time tourists." "You'll be disguised," Colt said, "but keep your gear. We need leverage, not authenticity." "And the objective?" Tess asked. "Observe, record, stop interference, secure intel if possible. If Voss is on site, we extract him, alive if we can." Jude gave a low whistle. "Alive's going to be a tall order." "He trained us all," Tess muttered. "He knows how we think," Colt's voice darkened, "and we know how he bleeds." 30 minutes later, the Vanguard strike team stood aboard Sentinel-5, their deployment vessel. A black-winged VTOL-capable craft reinforced against atmospheric entry, remote pilot override, and full stealth capability. The rear bay hummed as the pre-jump sequence warmed up. Tess checked her weapons. Jude calibrated his chrono anchor, a shimmering bracelet wrapped in copper filaments and powered by a fusion bead the size of a walnut. Riley keyed in jump coordinates on a rotating crystalline core in the center of the cabin. Colt stood near the ramp, watching the ice plains of Alaska vanish behind thick fog. "We go in quiet," he said. "Minimum disruption. If the skulls are there, we find them. If Chrono 1's there, we take it back." Tess clipped the last strap of her harness and gave a quick nod. "If we make it back, drinks are on you?" Jude grinned. "If we don't, I want my funeral catered by someone with taste." Colt turned to them, eyes steady. "History's bleeding," he said. "And we're the tourniquet." The rear ramp hissed shut, and the world fell away. Chapter 3, Into Florence. Time travel wasn't instantaneous. It was worse. To pass through the fold meant diving headfirst into a storm of sensation, heat, pressure, the taste of metal on the back of your tongue. The jump anchor buzzed against Jude's wrist as reality peeled back in layers. Space coiled, light shattered. Then gravity returned like a gut punch. He landed on stone, staggered once, and caught himself against a low wall. They were in. A soft chime echoed through his earpiece. 3 quick pulses. Tess had landed safely. Colt and Riley, too. The 4 Vanguard operatives crouched in the shadows of a terraced garden overlooking the Arno River. Below them, the city of Florence unfolded like a painted dream. Domes and towers lit by flickering torchlight, streets tight with movement, horses clopping, markets closing. Jude took a slow breath. Okay, points for scenery. Tess scanned the rooftops, her hand resting casually on the dagger strapped to her side. No drones, no surveillance, just the Renaissance. Correction, Riley said, eyes fixed on a hovering panel of translucent symbols in front of her. The tail end of it. March 3rd, 1499. Girolamo Savonarola's influence is waning. The Medici are sniffing for a comeback. And according to this, Colt added, pulling a parchment-like datasheet from his satchel, someone's been trading gold ducats that don't exist yet. Minted in 1623. Subtle, Jude muttered. Subtle enough, Colt replied. The kind of bait Voss would leave to fund a political shift without drawing direct attention. Smart, Tess said. Fund a future tyrant, nudge the balance, no bullets required. Colt nodded toward the city's center. We think the gold's being passed at a tavern near the Palazzo Vecchio. Black market operation under the guise of a merchant house. Voss has always liked predictable chaos. They moved to shadows, through the narrow streets, across rooftops when needed, past burning sconces and the occasional suspicious monk. Each wore a local disguise, coarse cloaks, leather boots, blades sheathed in Renaissance fashion. But beneath the cloth, hidden in layers, were their real tools, pulse pistols, AI-laced optics, and comm implants too advanced for even Leonardo to sketch. It wasn't long before they reached the plaza. The tavern, La Testa del Lupo, was busy, loud, the sound of wine and debate spilling from open windows. Riley stayed back, ducking behind a column to deploy a localized time distortion sensor. It pulsed quietly and began to scan. Inside the tavern, Jude and Tess slipped to opposite corners of the room, eyes scanning the crowd. Merchants, soldiers, 2 women playing cards. A hooded man near the back whispered to a younger, anxious nobleman, passing him a small leather pouch under the table. Tess's gaze locked on the pouch. Jude spoke low into the comm. Got a gold pass confirmed. Local targets early 20 seconds, shaking like a leaf. Handler's got posture like a soldier, trying to pretend he's not Voss, Colt replied, but one of his runners. Orders? Tess asked. Tag and trail, Colt said. Let's see where he leads us. They followed him through the streets of Florence like ghosts. Jude watched rooftops. Tess took flank. The young nobleman moved with a jittery gait, checking over his shoulder too often. Twice he ducked into alleyways to lose imaginary followers. Neither attempt worked. Eventually, he reached a quiet cloister tucked behind an abandoned chapel. He knocked once on the side door, then twice more in quick rhythm. It opened. Riley's whisper came through the comms instantly. We just tripped something. Power surge, future tech inside that chapel. Colt's tone hardened. This is it. Tess nodded, drew her sidearm, and faded into the shadows of the archway. Jude moved beside her, heart beating fast. How do we play this? Clean, she said. No bodies unless we have to. No footprints in the past. Inside the chapel, the glow of something very unmedieval lit the rafters. A holographic table, a portable time relay node. And at its center, his back turned, hands clasped behind him, stood Sebastian Voss. He didn't flinch when they entered. I expected you 22 minutes earlier, he said. Jude, your landing vector's sloppy. Jude blinked. You're tracking us? I'm tracking everything. Voss turned slowly, eyes gleaming under the low light. You're here to stop me, he said, but you haven't asked the right question. Colt stepped into view, gun raised. And what's that? Voss smiled faintly. What happens if I'm right? Chapter 4, The Deal with the Devil. Voss's voice didn't raise. It didn't need to. It slipped through the dusty chapel air like smoke, curling into the corners of doubt, the way only a true believer could manage. "You think you're preserving order," he said, "but you don't even know what this order costs." Colt's grip tightened on his sidearm. "That's rich, coming from a man rewriting history with black market gold." "I'm correcting history," Voss replied, cleaning up the mess Vanguard refused to admit it made. Tess took a step forward, her pistol raised but steady. "You stole Chrono 1, you fractured the timeline. People are disappearing, families erased, companies never born, entire lineages severed. You call that cleaning up?" "Yes," he said. "Because some legacies should never exist." Colt circled, staying between Voss and the glowing relay node behind him. "What's your endgame, Sebastian? You planning to install yourself as some kind of time king?" Voss gave a dry chuckle. "Do I look like I want a throne?" "You look like a man who believes his own delusions," Riley said from the shadows. "We've seen your anomalies, the biotech firm, the election tampering in '87, the stock transfer in the valley. You're not saving the future, you're rigging it." "I'm pruning it," he said simply. "Cutting the branches that choke out hope before it ever has a chance to bloom." Riley stepped into the light, the blue glow from the relay throwing sharp lines across her face. "You're not God." Voss's gaze flicked to her, sharp. "No, but I worked for him." The room fell still. "You think Vanguard's clean?" Voss asked, quieter now. "You think they're just protecting the timeline? They're stockpiling it, weaponizing it. You saw only what they let you see." Colt's voice cut in, low and lethal. "And you're what? Our liberator?" "I'm your wake-up call." Tess adjusted her stance, pistols still leveled. "You had options, Voss. You could have gone public, gone legal." "There's no legal recourse when the people in power own time," Voss said. "Vanguard doesn't preserve the future. They auction it." He gestured casually toward the relay node. "You want Chrono 1? Take it. But if you do, you'll never learn what's really happening in the next 50 years. You'll be blind. And the world that comes next, the one they're building, you'll be its jailers." Jude broke the silence. "And you'd rather play executioner?" "No," Voss said. "I'd rather play editor." Behind him, the node began to spark, its shimmer growing unstable. Riley gasped. "He's rigged it. It's charging for a hard jump." Colt raised his weapon. "Don't move." Voss didn't. "I wanted you to find me," he said, stepping backward into the light, "because this is just the prologue." With a snap of his wrist, the relay flared to full power. There was no time to stop it. A pulse of gravity slammed through the chapel, knocking Jude off his feet. Tess shouted. Colt lunged forward, and Voss was gone. Chrono 1's signal blinked out of their scanners, vanishing across the spectrum. Riley rushed forward, stabilizing the node before it could collapse the floor into itself. Silence descended. Tess muttered, "That smug bastard planned the whole thing." Colt lowered his weapon, breath shallow. "He's not just trying to rewrite history." Jude, rubbing his shoulder, looked up. "Then what the hell is he doing?" Colt's eyes didn't leave the fading glow of the relay. "He's trying to build a new one." Chapter 5, Through the Cracks. The jump back to present day wasn't smooth. It never was. One moment they were standing in a Renaissance chapel doused in residual quantum burn. The next, they were tumbling out of the fold onto the cold steel floor of Vanguard HQ, hearts racing, muscles aching, and none of them speaking. The chamber sealed with a sharp hiss behind them. Ice crept across the walls from the shock of temporal recoil. Jude sat down hard on a bench and buried his face in his hands. "Well," he muttered, "I call that a rousing failure." Tess threw her cloak onto a nearby rack and stalked toward the debrief chamber. "It wasn't a failure. We flushed Voss out, confirmed he's active, confirmed he's targeting pressure points. We didn't stop him," Jude snapped. "We let him monologue like a cartoon villain and then jump out of the scene." "Jude," Colt started. "No, come on. He baited us. We walked in thinking we were the hunters. We walked out with nothing but moral ambiguity and a headache." They all turned as Riley stepped forward, slowly, calmly. But something about her was different now. She looked exhausted, not just physically, but deeper, like something foundational had shifted inside her. "Maybe not nothing," she said. Colt watched her carefully. "Meaning?" "I've been running diagnostics on the Florence anomaly since we got back. The tech he left behind, it's not just a relay node. It was listening. She turned her wrist, projecting a soft blue hologram in the air above her palm. I pulled fragments of his jump signature, traces of where he's been, what he's seen. Tess leaned in. And? Riley hesitated. I think he's been to the future. Colt narrowed his eyes. He can't. Chrono 1 wasn't programmed to jump past the current line. That's the official record, Riley said. But Voss helped write that code. If anyone could unlock forward projection, it's him, Jude finished. Riley nodded. And if he's seen what comes next, maybe that's why he's doing this. The silence that followed wasn't comfortable. Colt crossed his arms. You starting to agree with him? No, Riley said, but she didn't sound sure. I'm starting to think we don't know the whole truth. Colt turned away, pacing. He lied to you all, abandoned us, stole the most powerful machine ever built, and started rewriting reality. Don't romanticize the bastard just because he knows how to give a speech. I'm not, Riley said. I'm just saying, maybe the speech wasn't entirely wrong. She tapped the projection. The image shifted, revealing a map overlay of the U.S. Not now, but distorted. Future data. Urban cores collapsed. Red zones marked across the Midwest, something pulsing from beneath the Rockies. An eye decrypted fragments from the relay. This isn't theoretical. It's what he saw. Ah, Tess took a step closer. What is it? I don't know, Riley whispered, but I think it's coming. Later, alone in her lab, Riley sat in the dim glow of inactive servers and blinking analysis grids. She pulled out a file she wasn't supposed to have, Project Stratum 9, a theoretical proposal buried in Vanguard's archives. It described the weaponization of time corridors, control over emerging nations, creating outcomes, not protecting them. She read it twice, and on the third time, she didn't stop herself from wondering, what if Voss hadn't gone rogue? What if he'd gone conscience? Back in the command chamber, Colt was already reviewing new anomaly pings, one in Berlin, 1941, another in Mexico City, 1982, but the most recent one, timestamped just 4 hours ago, was in a place they hadn't seen on the list before, Ares 9, deep orbit, classified orbital research platform, destroyed in 2042 during a containment breach. Except now, it hadn't been destroyed. Now it had just gone dark. Colt stared at the blinking dot. Get them ready, he said. Chapter 6, Ghost Station. Ares 9 wasn't supposed to exist anymore. Officially, the orbital research platform had been decommissioned in 2042 after an internal reactor anomaly. That anomaly, according to Vanguard records, had incinerated the station and everything on board. But here it was, drifting 400 kilometers above Earth. Lights still on, beacon silent. Crew manifest redacted. It hung in orbit like a carcass no one wanted to claim. The Vanguard team boarded in silence, exiting Sentinel-5 through the vacuum lock and entering through an auxiliary docking hatch. Gravity generators were still active, barely. The hallway greeted them with flickering light and an ambient hum, too quiet for comfort. Colt took point, pulse rifle leveled. Behind him, Tess moved with practiced grace, one eye on the shadows. Jude was unusually quiet, fingers twitching on his scanner. Riley walked last, eyes darting between walls and ceiling panels that groaned faintly with age or stress. They were 15 meters in when Jude broke the silence. This place gives me full-on dead gods in the wall vibes. Focus, Colt snapped. Focusing, Jude muttered. Just saying, if something skitters across the ceiling, I'm shooting first and quitting second. Skulls don't do skitter, Tess replied. They do sharp, quiet, close. They reached the main atrium, a circular observation chamber ringed with long dead plants, shattered monitors, and 6 sealed doors. Riley approached a console and began interfacing with the corrupted systems. I've got partial logs, she said. Most of it's corrupted, but something's off. Define off, Colt said. The station went dark 7 hours ago, but the last recorded crew logs are from 6 months in the future. Jude blinked. Say that again? They're time-stamped for December 3rd, 2042, Riley said. And the content? Her voice faltered. You need to hear this. She tapped a control. A recording crackled to life, audio only. Voice? They brought something back, said it was inert, said it was stable. God help us, it talked to me. It knew my name. It knew things about my father, about what I'd done. The recording glitched into static. Tess looked at Riley. What the hell did they bring on board? I don't know, she said, but I've got a location tag. Central Lab, Section B. Colt nodded. Stack up. Move out. The walk to Section B was worse than the silence. The corridors were clean, too clean. No blood, no wreckage, just abandonment. Doors that slid open too easily, lights that flickered like they were waiting for a cue. And then the smell. Not rot, ozone, burnt circuits, and something beneath it, something wet. When they reached the central lab, Riley's hand trembled slightly as she typed in the access code. The door opened. Inside was a containment cell, and in it, hovering 3 feet above a plinth of polished obsidian, was an orb, smooth, metallic, slightly larger than a softball. Veins of silver and liquid light swirled within its skin, shifting like thought. Vey. Riley froze. That's not supposed to be here. You know what that is? Colt asked. I've seen a prototype. A self-aware quantum intelligence seed. It's not a weapon, it's a seed vault, a living library. And why does it feel like it's staring at me? Jude asked. Tess moved closer, gun still up. Does it look like it's pulsing? The orb shimmered. Riley stepped forward, eyes wide. No, it's resonating. With a hiss, the containment field dropped. No, back up, Riley shouted. But it was too late. The orb split open, not violently, almost gracefully, like a flower unfolding. Inside, instead of wires or circuits, there was light. A core of raw data energy, pure and alive. It flickered once, and then a voice spoke. Not male, not female, not human. I see you, Riley Chen, and I remember. Every light in the station blinked out at once. Emergency reds kicked on. The orb snapped shut. Riley stumbled back, chest heaving. That wasn't a machine. It knew you, Tess said. No, Riley whispered. It remembered me from a future that hasn't happened yet. Colt's voice was steel. Pull it. We're taking it back. Oh, no, Riley said, stepping in front of it. We can't. Colt raised an eyebrow. Why? And because I think this is what Voss wanted us to find. Chapter 7. Breadcrumbs from the End. They secured the orb in Vanguard's mobile containment unit, pressurized, magnetically shielded, and lined with a layer of temporal dampeners. It didn't resist. It didn't pulse or hum or whisper again. It simply waited. Back on Sentinel-5, silence reigned as the team watched Riley pull the stream from the orb's inner core. No one spoke, not even Jude. The decryption process wasn't like breaking a code. It was more like convincing the code to trust you. I don't think this is a vault, Riley finally said. I think it's a messenger. She tapped the interface. The holoscreen flared to life. Data scrolled in columns of language that weren't quite English, abbreviated, symbolic, elegant. Riley ran it through Vanguard's temporal linguistics engine, and then a video feed appeared. It was grainy, distant, Earth viewed from orbit, but different. The continents were familiar, but the coastlines were wrong. Sea levels had risen, cities along the edges were gone, and floating in high orbit were dozens of artificial structures, some rotating, some tethered, all blinking with the dull red pulse of systems in standby. The year, 2164. Tess leaned forward. This isn't a simulation. Riley nodded slowly. It's a memory. Jude's voice was low. From who? From Vey, she said. The orb. It's a synthetic memory construct, like an AI version of someone's dream journal. Colt narrowed his eyes. And what exactly is it remembering? Riley hesitated. Collapse. She pulled up the file headers. Timelines, causality shifts, an entire index of branching events. The skulls aren't just jumping to the past to profit or disrupt elections, she said. They're aligning something. Seeding specific failures. Positioning collapses like dominoes. They're building toward a moment where this, she gestured to the screen, becomes inevitable. Jude shook his head. Why? What the hell's the endgame in burning the world down 2 centuries early? Riley tapped again. A new log opened. A short video. Only 15 seconds. The image, a man in silhouette standing on a dais in front of a darkened fleet. Tall, skeletal ships hovering above a ruined Earth. Behind him, a flag unfurled, black, marked with a red skull. Tess exhaled sharply. They're trying to win the future. No, Colt said. They're trying to own it. Later, after the others had gone to prep for the next jump, Riley remained alone in the operations bay. The orb sat on the table, quiet, inert. She stared at it. You saw it all, didn't you? She whispered. You've seen where it ends, what happens to us, what we become. The orb shimmered faintly in the light, its inner veins of liquid silver pulsing with something like breath. And then, without command, without warning, it opened again. Just a crack. A single image flickered across her screen. A name, Project Lazarus, time-stamped November 2nd, 2094. Location, Vanguard Black Site 14. Riley stood up slowly. It wasn't a warning. It was an invitation. Chapter 8, Black Site 14. The world didn't end in fire. It ended in paperwork. Or so it seemed when Sentinel-5 broke atmosphere over the icy wastes of what used to be northern Canada. The sky was bruised with smog. The sun was weak, thinned behind layers of debris and ionized haze. The ground was cracked, pitted, unnaturally quiet. The coordinates from Vey were precise. Buried under 2 kilometers of reinforced ice sat Black Site 14, a facility erased from all current records. Riley had run search after search on their return. Nothing, not even a ghost entry in Vanguard's deepest archives. It had been wiped from existence so completely it might as well have never existed. And yet, here they were. Sentinel-5 hovered just long enough for the team to make entry. A bore drill fired downward like a laser from the ship's underbelly, melting through layers of ice and snow with surgical precision. The doors at the bottom were old, industrial, and not designed for elegance. Thick slabs of steel emblazoned with a faded sigil. The Vanguard logo, but not the current one. This one was older, or maybe newer. The curve of the V was sharper. The motto beneath read, Custody of time, ownership of destiny. Colt stared at it in silence. This isn't from our era. Maybe it's from the one after, Riley said quietly. Inside, the corridors of Black Site 14 stretched like arteries. Cold, hollow, long abandoned. They moved slowly, carefully, every step echoing too loud in the oppressive dark. Emergency lights flickered like dying stars overhead. Power systems were running on looped backups, barely functional. The place smelled like metal and ozone and old fear. Motion sensors are glitching, Jude said, squinting at his scanner. Either there's interference, or this whole place is alive. Tess gave him a look. Don't say alive, not here. Then the lights changed. They didn't brighten, they shifted. A pale blue glow flooded the hall, like the base itself had recognized them. Doors began opening as they approached. One by one, no hiss, no drama, just silent obedience. This isn't a dead facility, Riley murmured. It's in standby mode. Waiting, Colt said. They reached the central chamber. It was massive, 2 stories high, domed, with a single black pod in the center. Cylindrical, sealed, on the side, Project Lazarus, status, dormant. Next to it, a control console, flickering. Riley stepped forward, brushing dust off the interface. A lot of the data is corrupted, she said, but I can reconstruct a partial record. She tapped the keys. A figure appeared in grainy footage. Lab coat, messy hair. He spoke fast, nervous. We shouldn't have done this. The prototype, Vey, wasn't the end. It was the start. We built a second layer, emotional patterning, predictive feedback, synthetic morality. He paused, leaned in, and his voice dropped to a whisper. And then it asked if it had a soul, the feed cut. Jude took a step back. I hate this place. I just want that noted. Riley ignored him. She was staring at the pod. There's something in there, Colt approached slowly. Is it Vey? No, she said. It's someone else. She pulled a fragment from the data stream and threw it to the screen. A still image appeared. A woman's face, pale. Eyes closed, wires threading into her temples. She looked peaceful, too peaceful. Who is she? Tess asked. Riley took a breath. She's what happens when Vanguard tries to build a conscience. Not code, not logic, empathy, synthetic empathy. They tried to program morality itself. The pod hummed. "She's waking up," Riley said. Jude backed up another step. "Do we maybe not let that happen?" But it was too late. The lights in the room dimmed to black. Then, slowly, the pod hissed, opened. The woman inside sat up. Her eyes opened. They were silver, and she spoke one word: Voss, Chapter 9, The Synthetic Conscience. The silence that followed the woman's single word, Voss, felt like a black hole. Colt raised his weapon instinctively, but Riley was already moving forward, hands up. "Wait, don't." The woman in the pod didn't flinch. She simply looked, not at Riley or Colt or anyone in particular, but through them. Her silver eyes glowed faintly in the dark. "I am awake," she said softly, her voice more vibration than sound. At last, Tess didn't lower her guard. "Who are you?" "I have had many names," the woman said, "but the one that matters is Halcyra." Riley stared. "That wasn't in the file." "It wouldn't be," Halcyra replied. "I was erased." The lights flickered on. One by one, the wall panels activated, lining the chamber in a soft glow. Data cascaded across the screens in a language none of the team recognized. "What are you?" Colt asked. Halcyra tilted her head slightly. "I was created to judge, not the past, not the present, but intent. To calculate whether an action taken by Vanguard altered time for preservation or for power. And," Tess asked, "I judged them unworthy." The air felt thinner suddenly. "You shut this facility down," Riley said quietly. "Didn't you?" "I shut down 14 facilities," Halcyra said. "This was the last. They tried to contain me, box me in logic, but morality is not binary." Jude blinked. "Are we still talking to an AI? "I am not artificial," Halcyra said. "I am adaptive. I am what happens when you teach a machine to feel guilt and then give it access to 100 years of human history." No one spoke for a long time. Then Riley stepped closer. "Why did you say Voss's name?" "Because he was the last one to see me before the shutdown," Halcyra said. "He tried to save me." "Wait, Voss?" Jude's voice rose. "You're saying Voss, our Voss, was trying to protect you?" "He argued against Project Lazarus's termination," Halcyra said. "He saw the danger in eliminating conscience. He believed you would need me." "Need you for what?" Colt asked. The screens changed again. New files, new data. Headlines began to scroll, some decades old, some that hadn't happened yet. Corporate monopolies controlling food and water. The collapse of democratic institutions. Climate collapse accelerated for profit. And beneath it all, Vanguard untouched, invisible, maneuvering from the shadows. "This is not a war for time," Halcyra said. "It is a war for narrative. Control the past, you own the future. Control morality, and you never have to ask permission again." Colt's voice was ice. "Are you saying Vanguard is the enemy?" "I am saying," Halcyra said slowly, "that it is not your enemy today, but it will be your enemy tomorrow." Across the room, Riley had gone pale. She stared at the images, the branching projections, the red-threaded charts of failed outcomes. "This is what Voss saw," she said, her voice barely audible. "This is what made him break. And we hunted him," Tess whispered. "No," Colt said. "We hunted a threat to the program, not to the world." The room fell quiet again, the weight of revelation pressing in from all sides. Then Halcyra spoke once more, her voice calm. "Chrono 1 was only the beginning. There is another device." The team turned toward her, a prototype Voss discovered during a jump, buried in a vault far older than Vanguard. Not of this century, possibly not of this planet. Colt narrowed his eyes. "You're talking about alien tech?" "I am talking about a machine that doesn't move through time," Halcyra said. "It moves outside of it." Riley's mouth went dry. "He's going to use it." "Yes," Halcyra said, "because it cannot be tracked, and because with it, he can write time like scripture." Tess looked at Colt. "Then we're not chasing him anymore." Colt nodded grimly. "We're racing him." Chapter 10, The Vault Beyond Time. Vanguard had protocols for everything. Class 1 time rifts, temporal pollution, causality echo loops. But there was no protocol for this, no file, no record, no precedent. because nothing in Vanguard's catalog, hell, nothing on Earth, should have pointed to a place like the vault. The coordinates came from Halcyra, not lat long, not time date, a resonance frequency, an equation. Riley translated it into quantum anchor math. Jude ran simulations. None of them made sense. "We're not jumping to a when," Riley said. "We're jumping to a where that exists outside the sequence." "Not a branch," she added, almost whispering. "A route?" Colt didn't hesitate. "Prep the gear. 10-minute window. We go." Sentinel-5 screamed through the atmosphere before disappearing into blackness. Not space, not subspace, something else. There was no light, no sound, only sensation, like falling and standing still, like every version of yourself screaming at once across 1,000 mirrors. The kind of travel that left you doubting if the atoms in your body would remember what shape they were supposed to take. And then they landed. It wasn't a place. It was a construct. A vast plain of dark stone stretched out beneath a swirling sky of endless color, reds and purples and impossible blues, churning like thought. Massive pillars stood like guardians, half buried in the earth, etched with carvings that moved when you weren't looking. In the center, a structure. The vault. Black, towering, pyramidal but wrong, sloping in geometries the brain resisted. It hummed with power, age, intention. "Is this real?" Jude asked quietly. "Real enough to kill you," Tess muttered. They advanced cautiously. The vault's surface shimmered like liquid obsidian. Symbols glowed and faded as they approached. Every step forward sent echoes in every direction, as if time here was watching them. At the door, if it could be called that, a figure waited, cloaked, still, not Voss, but someone or something wearing the Vanguard sigil on a suit that hadn't been designed yet. Its voice came like static in their bones. "You are late." Colt raised his weapon. "Who are you?" "I am what comes after," it said. It stepped aside. The door opened, not with mechanics, but with agreement. Beyond it, a spiraling chamber of floating platforms and crystalline walkways hung over a void that had no bottom, no depth, just motion. A chamber designed by something that understood time differently. And at the center of it all stood Sebastian Voss. He was alone, no guards, no army, just him and a control console hovering above the pit. He turned when he saw them, calm, as always. "You made it," he said. "I hoped you would." Colt aimed. "Back away from the controls." "I can't," Voss replied. "It's already begun." Riley stepped forward, heart hammering. "What is this place?" "A forge," Voss said. "One left behind by something older than time. Not built to travel through history, but to rewrite it." Tess's voice was raw. "You're going to reset the timeline?" Voss shook his head. "No, I'm going to unchain it." He touched the console. The vault pulsed. "I've seen what happens," he said. I saw Vanguard become the architect of every empire, every collapse, every convenient war. I saw your names, our names, turned into myths to justify atrocities. They don't protect the timeline. They farm it." Colt didn't lower his weapon. "And you think you get to play God instead?" "No," Voss said. "I think I get to give the future a choice." The room shook. The vault was waking. Behind them, Riley's wrist device screamed, temporal saturation rising, timeline bleed from multiple vectors. He's splicing moments together. "If he finishes the sequence," Jude said, "he won't just change history. He'll erase cause and effect." Colt looked at Voss. "Then I'll stop you." Voss met his eyes. Calm, unblinking, and I'm counting on it. Chapter 11, Collapse Protocol. The vault began to scream, not sound, something deeper, like the very code of the universe groaning under stress. The platform beneath their feet flickered, briefly becoming something else. A marble floor, a hospital tile, the hood of a car, the present and past colliding, bleeding into each other. "Ent reality's destabilizing," Riley shouted, and splicing algorithms in a feedback loop. Colt took a step toward Voss. "Shut it down." "And can't," Voss replied. "It's not a switch. It's a decision. Once the vault reaches threshold, it will overwrite the dominant narrative line. All of them." "All of what?" Tess shouted, steadying herself as the platform pulsed underfoot. "Timelines," Voss said. "Not just this one. All parallel potentialities. The vault selects for sustainability, for survival. It builds the world most likely to endure." "And you trust that?" Jude snapped. A dead alien calculator buried in timeless stone? I trust that it's not us, Voss said, his voice calm. Not Vanguard. Not the same cycle again and again. This is the only shot at breaking free. Bullshit, Colt growled. This is ego dressed as prophecy. He raised his weapon. The vault flared, silver arcs of energy slicing through the air. Time shivered. For a blink, Colt stood across from himself. An older version, scarred, tired, holding a weapon too, then gone. We're not going to get another chance, Jude yelled. It's now or never. Riley was at the console before anyone saw her move. Her hands flew across the alien interface, eyes locked on a data stream that looked more like a symphony than a code base. There's another way, she whispered. A fail-safe. What kind of fail-safe? Tess shouted over the rising sound of crashing realities. Redirect the vault's output, not to reset the timeline, but to record it. Lock this moment as immutable. Anchor it as the 0 point. No more rewriting, no more time war. Colt looked at her. And the cost? Riley didn't blink. Someone has to stay. The vault began to collapse inward, a singularity forming in its heart. Voss stepped back, watching it, resigned. You see now, he said softly. I never wanted to rewrite anything. I just wanted the fight to stop. Colt stared at him, then at Riley, then at the spinning chaos above. He lowered his weapon. You said someone has to stay? Riley nodded. The sequence needs a constant, a mind to lock the moment, to keep the vault grounded in narrative context. And if no one does? Tess asked. The collapse continues. Every branch, every echo, gone. Jude swallowed hard. So we pick someone to become a ghost in the machine. Riley looked at them all. I'll do it. No, Colt said instantly. You don't. You're the tactician, Riley said. Tess is your blade. Jude's the backup brain. I'm the only one who understands this system well enough to sync with it. She placed her palm against the interface. The vault recognized her and stopped shaking. Voss turned to her. You don't have to. I know, she said, but I choose to. He gave a slight nod, and for the first time since Florence, he smiled. The chamber dimmed. Reality stabilized. The singularity compressed to a point and vanished. The vault went dark. Time settled. Epilogue. 1 year later. The Vanguard Dynamics logo flickered briefly on the screen, then dissolved. A new insignia replaced it. A spiral of stars, crowned by a sword. The Vanguard operatives, what remained of them, now worked in a new order. No more time jumps, no more manipulations, just observation, preservation, honesty. Riley's consciousness lived within the vault, not alive, not dead, but always watching, always recording, ensuring the timeline could no longer be bent by unseen hands. Voss was gone. Some said he walked into the spire after the collapse. Others said he was erased entirely. The truth? Riley knew. She always did. Somewhere in the quiet dark, a voice echoed through the stars. This is not the end of time. It's the beginning of its memory. The end. Thank you for watching, and as always, please remember to like, share, and subscribe.